don't delay. Um, uh,
This is awesome because I started the recording. Welcome to Learn It from a Layman, where we start mid-sentence and we do not feel ashamed about it. I am Carl Christensen, and that babbling that you heard was Timothy Cox.
Actually, you heard my wife, and I'll thank you to speak of her with respect.
I was talking about your babbling. Bethany obviously always says meaningful things. So
The worst thing you can say about me right now is that I make plans with my wife and then change them. Think that make it into the recording?
yeah, it all did. Okay, so we're going to do a short podcast today about marriage tips, or essentially tips on how to stay happy in your marriage, hopefully. This is obviously coming from our male perspective, so take everything with a grain of salt.
I'm trying to think of something clever to say in response to that won't be like brutish, boorish, or offensive. But I'm just, yeah,
You got nothing. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so I think we'll just start there. I think that's a good place to start. So Tim, give us a tip on how to stay happily married.
Okay, so like here's the thing. I just want to like give my mindset. I think that everyone, all of us growing up, have like to varying degrees misconceptions about relationships, what they're like and how they're supposed to work, because of the stories that we see in movies and books and so forth, which are kind of follow this real simple arc of, attraction, maybe conflict, and then resolution, and then happy ending. Generally the storyline is you figure it out and then everything's bliss and you're happy at the end. And I think it really oversimplifies the way that relationships work, which they don't follow that kind of arc. They're, more like a plant that you have to constantly maintain, and that sometimes loses leaves and sometimes needs some pruning, and sometimes you have to dump manure on it or whatever to, but you have to work hard to keep it going. It's probably not a very good metaphor, but whatever.
So you need to dung your marriage? Is that what you said?
Done. No.
Dung.
Indeed. But no. So with that in mind, I think one thing that one tip that I would give is talk about how you feel. And that sounds like really super simple and stuff, but I think actually a lot of times it's not done. We oftentimes will not talk about how we feel, but we'll kind of bottle it up until we're so angry or offended or upset or whatever. Then it just kaboom comes out, and we got big argument or conflict. If you can talk about what you feel honestly and openly early on, it helps a lot. And there's one thing that I think actually, Bethany, you're the one who taught me this. You're the one who taught me what's it called?
This is a great podcast.
Yeah, that's right. I sound so articulate. No, it's I feel. What is it? The I statements. Thank you. Yes. So I statements. See, the thing is, you can't say you're bothering me or you made me mad or you're doing this, because that's accusatory and it throws up walls of resentment and defensiveness. But if you talk about it and you say, when you said that, I felt like I felt put off, or when you did this, or when you didn't do this, I felt like you had forgotten me, or like you weren't thinking about me. But if you talk about it in terms of how you feel, it allows you to bring up those things and express and talk about the problems that inevitably come up without attacking your partner and turning it into a big old conflict. It can still be kind of tricky to navigate, but that's a great place to start. I statements, they call them.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, so communication and the way they communicate, those are good ones. I think that's an important skill to be practicing before marriage as well. I don't think you can necessarily change the way you communicate and how often you communicate right at the flip of a switch. So make sure that you're practicing communicating well with other people in your life. Okay,
Carl,
so
when you said that, I felt
stop talking.
like, oh, so sad.
Yeah. Okay, so
Man,
it's my turn now.
I statemented you.
So the most important thing to me in my marriage has been viewing my wife as the number one priority in every situation. So, and you can think of it like this. So, because most, if you think back to when you were single, most of us had a priority. Maybe it was school, maybe it was work, maybe it was a sport, maybe it was whatever it was that you had, like that was your number one priority. And everything that kind of got in the way of that or caused a problem kind of changed your mood, made you grouchy, made you angry, because that's what you wanted. You wanted to do that one thing, right? At least there have been times in your life, for me, at some point it was swimming, at some point it was, college. So you just wanted to make sure that thing got done and got done well, and it was your number one priority. So in marriage, it's easy to think that at first and then kind of move on from that and start thinking about yourself and what you want to do with your day and what you want to do with your life, and your wife kind of starts settling back somewhere in the priority list, where it should always be the number one priority, should always be the thing that you think of. How does everything else fit around my wife? Because that's including yourself, right? Including your own personal wants. And so if you view it that way, and then everything else is really quite easy because it's happy. You if your wife is happy, you are then by consequence, by result, also happy. So yeah.
Yeah, and it that can be tricky because it shows up in different ways. Making your spouse a priority might show up in any conflict that you have where they want to go one way and you want to go the other.
Right.
And we all find ourselves, I think, being pretty darn stubborn, in at least in certain situations, and it's kind of hard to swallow it and say, you know what, I'm gonna let you do it your way, and I'm not even gonna hold it against you. Sometimes we'll be like, well, fine, do what you want, but I'm gonna be resentful, you
Right.
know. And if you can really let go and say, you know what, you're my number one priority, and so I'm gonna let you do what makes you happy, even though it's not what I want. When you can get to that kind of selfless moment, that builds a relationship.
Yeah, I think it also is important, like you said before, communication. So because, just because your wife is your number one priority doesn't mean that she's not going to want things that you don't want, and it's hard to always be selfless. And so as long as you're communicating well and she's also putting you as her top priority, then your marriage is going to go well. But yeah, I think communication there as well. I think of something recently with my wife. She was trying to plan our vacation in one way. I was trying to think of it in a different way. And so, we both communicated, figured out a best solution in what could have been a bit of a tricky situation. So
Yeah. And one thing that helps is to make like a spreadsheet and kind of keep track of kind of, selfless points and see who's kind of getting the most.
yeah,
and
exactly. Who's
who
winning?
owes more.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, you're a little low this week. You owe me.
Good. Yep. You need to make sure that you score keep in marriage.
Yeah.
For sure.
That is actually my next point is don't keep score. And I see this happen in relationships all the time, and it's not always like a literal points thing, but a lot of times what'll happen is we remember, well, hey, there's that time where I gave up this, or where you didn't give up this, and then the next time a conflict comes around, all those come out as evidence, exhibit A, B, and C, and we kind of marshal all of our memories in our favor to win the argument, and we're keeping score. Um, and what that shows is that basically shows that it's making our love and our respect conditional. We're saying, hey, my input in this relationship depends on your input, and it's conditional, so you better give and take. And that's not the best foundation for a relationship. It's a great relationship for a business contract or whatever, but you don't want your marriage to be like that. Or you want it to be, it needs to be truly unconditional. So you have to forget and let go. You have to forgive those past faults. You can't bring them back up as evidence. If you do, you're sabotaging your own relationship to fulfill your short-sighted pride and desire to win the argument.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a case. So I have a scenario where I haven't done this, but I've certainly felt the desire to scorekeep and to bring up old things. So we live in California, like I've mentioned in podcasts in the past, and my wife, when we moved, wanted to get a backyard pool. So wanted to buy a home with a backyard pool, and I didn't necessarily at first want to do that, right? I knew that it was going to be a fair amount of work, and I said, you know what, I'd rather just have pool access, somewhere where there's a community pool. I don't want to have to deal with that, but that was something that she wanted, and so I said, sure, let's do it. And in the few years that we've lived here now, the pool is at sometimes a nightmare. And I find myself sometimes, when I'm the one out there dealing with it, blaming my wife that somehow she got us into this and it's her fault. And if she hadn't asked for a pool, luckily I'm able to reel myself back in and realize, okay, it's not like I wasn't also party to this. She didn't buy the house, without my consent, and so yeah, it's sometimes it's really easy to fall into that trap, and you just need to realize, that it's just give and take, and yeah, she, I'm sure, has things where the same things happen the other way. So you got to, think about things from her point of view, and yeah, not scorekeep.
Yeah, and there's a double loss in cases like that where you have made a sacrifice for your relationship. I think sometimes that's a view we lose track of. If we can think of the things we care about as the things that we sacrifice for. Think about your kids, right? You sacrifice for your kids because you care about them and love them, not because you plan on getting an equal amount of
that's
benefit.
That's what I'm planning on. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Kids are an investment, but that's a nice plus,
right.
But it's not the purpose. And same with our relationships. And so when we take those sacrifices and turn them into strikes, something that could have fed the relationship becomes instead a wound to fester, and that's a sad loss.
Good. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so my next tip then is to build your wife up, and that can come in a number of different ways. So for guys, it's often very easy to make us happy. Okay, I guess I'm speaking for myself, but I also a number of other guys that I know as well. If you feed us, give us physical affection, and
respect,
let us watch some sports sometimes, we're happy. For girls, I think that's often, at least, a little more multifaceted. You need to be able to tell them that you trust them, that you love them, tell them that they're good at things, recognize the things that they do, and that's important to make her happy in your marriage. And once again, if she's your top priority and she's happy, then you're doing well in your marriage. So building her up, and obviously that can be, in little notes or flowers, like I said, lots of different ways to show your love, but also more than just showing love, it's also just letting her know the ways in which she's good and the things that she does well and the things that she's, impressive at and
ways you admire her.
Right. So I think that's important. That's something I often forget to do, and that's something I think, once again, speaking for guys broadly, it's something that's not necessarily natural. I don't ever tell Tim he does something good, right? Because I can't think of anything.
Yeah, well, I don't. I try to avoid it, especially in your presence.
Right, exactly. So, guys don't generally go around complimenting each other. Yeah. And so once you're married and you realize that you need to compliment your wife, it's not natural. It's not like you're constantly in the habit of realizing how to give a compliment. So, but that's, I think, something that's very important for women to feel that recognition and that respect, and that's something that they deserve.
And probably going off of that, I think there's lots of ways we can bend to our spouse's interests and desires. If it's not like you have to like everything that your spouse likes, but yep. It's healthy to take an interest in what they're doing, offer to help in a project, ask questions about something they like. But you weave your lives together, and you don't have to just have an innate interest in something to enjoy something. Watch movies that maybe wouldn't be your first choice, and maybe read a book that your spouse recommends or something like that.
Yeah, and don't do it begrudgingly, and said, like, if you can afterwards tell them, that was interesting, there was some good things I learned there, so thank you. That's, once again, building them up, letting them know that you're appreciating the things that they're doing, the things they're bringing to your marriage. So.
These are some good ideas. I should do all
Yes, as guys, also these tips. We know that we are, often single-track minded, and so it's hard to remember all of these things. So maybe write them down somewhere and, practice.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Tim? Any other tips that you wanted to share?
I think I had one other one, and then I forgot it, so it's just going to have to, be a mystery. You can just go away pondering, what is that last key idea that will save my relationship? And right. If you can find it, then good on you.
All right. So my last piece of advice is to sometimes still be romantic. Do things that you will find romantic, sexy, fun, exciting. Things that probably were fun when you were dating. Probably not maybe sometimes the same things, but not always the same things. But just things that are ways that she can feel that you still view her as a romantic partner as well, not just a convenience and necessity type of scenario, but that you have that romance alive, because that's important. You got to keep that current, and as you age, that changes the way that you can express your love, but make sure that you do things together that show that you are in love with her, and that is that's meaningful to you.
Cool. Well said.
All right. So hopefully one of these tips saves your marriage, or maybe your marriage shouldn't need saving, but hopefully none of these ruin your marriage.
Jeez. If they do, then
send Tim your counseling bill.
That's right.
I
You'll get a full refund.
All right. So for those of you that are married out there and those of you that are yet to be married, go to and do important self. I don't know what I'm trying to say, Tim. Finish my sentence.
Send us a check.
Send us money. Good. All right. Well, that'll be our podcast for tonight. Tim, thank you for not babbling as much as you sometimes do.
And Bethany, if you're listening to this, I'm sorry for all the things I haven't done, and also for all the things I have done but poorly, and
all the things that you plan on doing and will do in the future, even if you don't plan on them.
In the words of the great Possum Lodge motto, I'm a man, but I can change if I have to, I guess.
That's a good way to go. All right. We will see you back next podcast.
Adios.